We are two dudes who like comic books, video games, and a whole bunch of other nerdy stuff. Sometimes, usually me, there's some attitude involved in our discussions as well. Welcome to Comic Dudes with Attitudes. This is episode 40, and it's a special episode to me because we're starting a monthly discussion about my favorite comic book, my favorite superhero, Mark Grayson, aka Invincible. So we read the first two trade paperbacks, and every month we're going to chunk away at this because, for those that are maybe unaware, this is also the start of the 20th anniversary of Invincible. 20 years ago this month, issue 1 came out. I remember sitting in the comic book shop that I worked at in Erie, Pennsylvania on a Saturday evening, a snowy Saturday evening, reading issue 1 behind the counter and absolutely falling in love with this character. And the rest, as they say, is history. 20 years of history. We're going to start talking about it right now.
Interesting. So did you...
Why is that interesting?
just... I was going to start with, like, why is this series, like, so important to you? Like, did you... When you picked up Invincible and you were reading it, did it connect with you, like, immediately? Or did it take some time? Or, like, I'm just curious. Like, I want to have these conversations on wax so I can reference them back again.
Okay,
I know it's a very important series to you. It's a very important series to me too, but
so I think for me, the draw of Invincible was being able to kind of grow up with Mark. At the start of the comic, he's 17. He's still in high school. He doesn't have his powers, but he knows that something is coming. He's supposed to have powers because his dad's a superhero. And his dad tells him that he's probably going to have powers too. Just waiting for him to kick in. A lot of my favorite established heroes like Marvel and DC heroes, especially Spider-Man and the X-Men, when those characters were created, they were young. They were high school, college. They had grown up by the time I got into comic books. They were already adults. They were in their 20s or 30s. They were past all that stuff. And at the time when Invincible came out, I was a young man in his early 20s. So Mark was extremely relatable to me because I was sort of fresh out of high school and still, I was in between stints at college. And, it's just one of those things where I felt like an immediate connection to the character and being able to kind of grow up with Mark in some ways was kind of nice because I didn't get that with a lot of my other favorite characters.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's so for just where I'm coming at from this series, I was definitely a later convert. I wasn't a day one Invincible guy. This was something that Dave put me on and was like, you need to read this. I think you should read this. And I believe you bought me the first trade. And I was like, sure, man, I'll check it out. I was very much so in the Marvel DC, I was a younger comic book reader, so I was very much so in the Marvel DC lane. That's where a lot of my money went. And independent comics, like what are they? That wasn't really my thing. But I checked out Invincible, and like almost immediately, like after that first, probably the second trade where this kind of ends up, it definitely connected with me, and I got it. The thing that I like about Invincible is obviously it's a Robert Kirkman joint, and he just knows how to write like relatable stories. The only other series I'll say that's probably more relatable is Saga. I mean, and those are, those are 1A, 1B, depending on what day, it doesn't matter. So, I mean, for me, ultimately, like this first volume, you're learning about the characters, you're learning about Mark, you're learning about Nolan, who is the father, who is a Supermanish figure, kind of
He's Omni-Man.
He's Omni-Man. Like that kind of like that Superman character, and his wife Debbie, who's just, she's just a normal human, and just the conversations they have and the relationships and the family dynamics, and like that's like, it's just funny for like us when you talk to someone about like this series, or you talk to someone about Saga, and it's just like all these fantastical elements, but they're ultimately stories about family. And I just remember like even like Walking Dead, because like that was something I kind of got on. I heard they were making some TV series, so I went back and like read all the trade paperbacks, and on the back of them, it was like something along the lines of like, this is a story that has, it's like it's a story about zombie, but it's really a not. It's about the humanity involved, and that's ultimately when you hit on those kind of elements. I think you just got a recipe for success.
Well, yeah, and that's
Um,
I mean, Invincible's kind of the same thing. It's really a story about growing up and coming to
yes,
terms with your family and your place within the world at large. It just happens to be set against a really robust and well thought out and well imagined superhero universe that also happens to be pretty adult themed and very violent.
yeah,
So you
yes, of
it
course.
appeals, in my opinion, it appeals to a very broad type of comic fan.
Okay,
And I really struggle with people that have never read Invincible or like have no interest in reading it, because I think if you like superheroes at all, you owe it to yourself to read this book.
uh,
The
I'm
tagline at the on the comic, the monthly comic, and I'm pretty sure that it's missing from the hardcovers.
yeah,
It
it's
might be on the trade paperbacks, but the tagline above the logo on the single issues used to say
you
the
can't see
best
it, but it's
superhero
just
it's
yeah,
the best superhero comic in the universe, and
yeah.
it's true. There's literally I've never read a superhero comic that's better than Invincible.
And
Period.
like I started like reading this comic. Like we'll talk later about when we get in the news and those kind of segments and stuff. But like I really didn't do like a lot of reading over this winter break. I kind of just chilled out, got into some other things. But like I
Yeah,
read
I didn't really
Invincible.
either.
I read like the first two trades we're going to talk about, and I was just like, man, why do I read anything else? Like I should just read like this.
Yeah.
Like there's always good arcs of something. Daredevil Born Again is probably one of my favorite stories, but like on a consistent basis, I don't know how many issues it was, from 1 to 132 issues or something it was, ended up being like Invincible is just an awesome story.
Yeah.
Um
This reread that we're going to do right now, and I'm kind of glad we're going to space that over the course of a full year,
yeah,
because this is my fourth time reading it, um, and it's my third time in the last probably 5 years, 4 years, 5 years. So, and I'm still like, there are some
find
things that
stuff every time.
I find something new, or you know, I interpret something a little differently because I'm a little bit older.
Yep.
My life's experiences have changed my outlook on something, or there's just it's so interesting to read this at different points in my life to see how my perception of the comic changes based on where I'm at in life. Like
Yeah.
Invincible stays the same. Like the comic doesn't change,
Yeah.
but as we take trips around the sun, my perspective, my point in space, looking back at Invincible changes, and I think that that's really a fun experience to go back to something that obviously I know Invincible really well because I've read it so many times and I'm so familiar with it because I love it so much. But to still be able to kind of see it with a different perspective is really fun for me.
Yeah. So like I mean I was like, I'm not gonna like, not that I was like tears reading this or anything, but like when you're reading the story, like, I mean, the one scene obviously I know you're pretty, you know, fond of is in that second issue. Yeah, Mark is, we've talked about how Nolan is Omni Man is telling him, hey son, you're gonna get these powers at some point. This might happen. You could be stronger than me. You could be weaker than me. I don't know, like whatever. But you're probably gonna get these powers. And Mark is, he's just waiting and waiting and waiting his whole life, and then he's working his, dead end job at Burger Mart, aka McDonald's or Burger King or whatever, and he's going to go throw out the trash, and he chucks the trash in the bin, but it doesn't make it to the bin. It shoots off into the sky, and just the panels of showing his face, and I think he says cool, he's got just like the expression on his face that like he has the powers. It just like really like oh man, like this is, and knowing ultimately where this ends up, but like this is the start of the journey was like a really cool thing to like to relive again. It's been so long since I've read Invincible. So
Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned before on the podcast that I have an Invincible tattoo, but I've never said what that tattoo is. I was waiting for when we finally got to have this Invincible conversation. So it's just a small little filler. I have both my arms tattooed down to the elbow. I have bigger pieces, and I have a lot of little small filler pieces. And one of my filler pieces, my favorite tattoo, it is a bag of trash with little motion lines on it. It's flying up into the air. It's that. It's from that panel of Invincible. It's my favorite panel in a comic book of pretty much all time.
ever, yeah.
Yeah, it's tattooed on me. It's gonna go to the grave with me. That's how much this comic like means to me from a entertainment and a social perspective.
And the fact that I was there to see that I'm not getting any tattoos, but the fact that I was with Dave to get that, and like that was a special kind of moment to be there because I know like this story means so much to you, and the fact that you convinced me to go on that journey because I did. I was getting Invincible month to month. I think it was probably around like issue 48 or 42. I got on the monthly train, so I was on it for a good amount of time, with you. And we would, yo, did you get it? Did you get the new Invincible? And we talk about it. Like that was fun to do. You know, we do that with
Shout
Saga
out
now.
Paul. Paul was
Yeah,
also on the monthly grind
Paul
for
was on the
Invincible.
grind
Paul's
too.
another one
Yeah,
that I bought Paul Volume 1 of Invincible as well. I've bought Volume 1 of Invincible for quite a few people. I have bullied quite a few people into trying Invincible. Robert Kirkman owes me at least some small royalty, 7.5, 8 cents maybe.
yeah,
Well, break a little something off for me, Rob. Come on.
yeah. You might have like $5 from all the people you got into it,
Yeah,
bro.
I'm out here evangelizing the comic. Still, 20 years later, I'm still out there doing the work. I'm pounding the pavement on Invincible.
I mean, you probably made, $20 off of me between the single issues, the digital, the hardcover, the soft cover, the omnibus, the trade in, the more hardcover. Uh, yeah. So, like, what did you? I mean, I broke it down like issue by issue, and I don't. We
Yeah,
don't have
then
to do that,
we can.
obvious.
But still, I mean, if you want to hit some of your
Uh,
favorite point, well, like, whatever.
yeah.
Like I said, this is my third reread in like
So, all right.
five
Yeah.
years, 4 years. So some of this kind of blurs together for me in terms of like
Okay.
what happens in what issue, and I'm also, I because season 2 of the show comes out this year.
Yes.
I also convinced my girlfriend to start watching the show, so we're rewatching season 1. Well, she's watching it for the first time with me while I rewatch it.
Okay.
Stuff in the show happens a little bit differently in the comic and out of order, so I'll tell you what, watching the show at the same time as reading the first 2 trades, things are very jumbled in my brain right now.
And that's good. I will say though, I haven't made it the complete way through the first season, but I expect there to be deviation when they adapt, when they adapt
Yeah,
the show
there should
from the
be.
source material.
There should be.
But at the core, it really does kind of follow
Oh,
the
dude,
issue.
the fight with Alan is panel for panel
Yes.
recreation.
So like, yeah. So all right, I'm just gonna do my little breakdown. So the first 2 issues, like, are honestly, they're really just like his origin story. You get the origin story of Omni Man, aka Nolan. Um, they get into like
Well,
this.
you get a version of his
See, okay, so
story.
you answer my question. So where we're going? So you get the first origin of Nolan, Omni Man, in the
I mean, it's
second
partial.
issue.
It's true.
You know, it's true. It
It's
is
true
true.
from his perspective.
It is true.
He
So
believes it.
you get Nolan's origin story. In the first issue, there's like a series of kind of like bombings that are going on where like a person will be, you found out later in the story, but high schoolers are being kidnapped. They're being strapped to these bombs that are like infused into them organically, and they become like, human bombs, for example. So Nolan and Mark are kind of out in the second issue. Nolan kind of gets whiff of it. They go to the bomb. They go to the mall where a bombing is going to take place. Nolan is captured by some aliens. They're fighting these
I think
alien
that's a little bit
invaders.
later than the second issue
The no the
because when the Flaxons take Nolan, that's after they fought them.
This is in the sec. Oh, sorry, 1 and 2. This is the third issue. My bad. Sorry, I apologize. Um, Mark and Nolan are fighting the Flaxons, who are the alien invaders who
So
age. Go ahead.
But before you say too much,
Okay.
because I think part of me would like to believe that we're going to get some people into Invincible. If
Okay.
if people, so maybe we shouldn't say too much. Like maybe we don't give everything away,
Okay.
just so there's something to go and
Okay.
experience for yourselves if you want to go and pick up this comic.
Okay.
Again, Robert Kirkman, if you're ever stumbled upon this episode, proof again that I am out here trying to get you money. I'm trying to sell Invincible comics.
Okay.
Put me on the payroll, brother. That wasn't a joke. Please hire me. I will work at
Yeah,
Skybound.
please, please, please hire
My
me.
resume is available. I'm also on LinkedIn.
All right. So what about some of the just the high moments? Then I won't go beat by beat. So issue 5, talking. You mentioned Alan. You mentioned Alan the alien.
Big
Uh,
time Allen fan.
yeah. So reading the encounter with long. I'm not gonna go into it, but Alan is an alien. That he's like a planet surveyor for the coalition of planets. Like he has to check out like the defense capabilities of planets on a rotating basis. And Mark ends up in space, and they have an encounter. Um, is there a more likable character in this series than Alan, dude? Like
Yeah, I think
he's
yes.
just
I
a
think
cool
there's
character.
one.
One, okay, he's a cool
I think
character
Eve
design.
is more likable than Alan.
Okay,
At the end of the
all right.
day, I think Eve is probably the most likable character.
And Eve is, we haven't really even talked about Eve. Eve is goes to high school with Mark pretty much, but she's also a superhero spoiler. But yeah,
That's not really a spoiler.
yeah,
I feel like a lot of people's first introduction to Invincible was the Amazon show, and
yeah,
that show was, by most measures of success, a hit.
yeah,
So I think a lot of people are familiar with, what they saw in the show.
yeah. No, but Alan's just like a cool. I don't know. His character design is cool. He's like a kind of like a Cyclops guy.
Yeah,
Um,
big fan of Alan.
and you become obviously a really big fan of him. He's kind of he's not dumb, but like the whole reason he's at Earth is just funny why he's there. Like he's not supposed to be there, but he ends up being there, and it's just like he's just an interesting, funny character.
Now there
Um,
is, Alan does have some
he yeah later on in the series, like
later
you
on,
start to it's
there's a
not
couple of moments where you're like, dude, what are you doing?
when you said Eve is more likable, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot. Like later on in the series,
But even Eve has her moments.
yeah, they all do, and that's the best part because they're all humans. We all have our own, moments. Um, I mean, hitting on the high beats. Do you want to talk about the big twist? Because like that's in the show. That's like the first episode of the show, like the end of the first
Yeah. Yeah.
episode, kind of like what happens and what is the major hook. I'd like to think we're going to get some people into this as well too, but I'm going to leave that one to you because
Yeah. I mean,
that.
I won't say too much about it either, but I will say that scene with the Guardians of the Globe,
Yes.
I actually preferred the show's treatment of that more so than the comic. However, reading the comic for the first time when that happened, uh, man, like the speed and brutality, that was a
It's
like
2 pages,
drop,
man.
yeah, like drop the comic, like whoa, what is happening right now? In the show, because the show is animated and you're watching things play out, I think they did that the right way. Like getting to see the kind of the fight that ensues, but two different treatments. I think they're both great in their own right, but having both now to compare, I think I like the show a little bit better.
Would you say so? The artist, I think it's
Corey
Corey
Walker.
Walker for the first
Corey
however many
Walker's the
issues.
artist on the first 8 issues.
First eight, okay, and then
There's
Ryan
some
Ottley takes.
fill-in stuff that occurs.
Okay,
It's actually addressed in the foreword in the second volume of the trade paperback. The foreword is by Eric Larson, and he comments on how the comic kind of stalled a little bit because Corey hit a wall, and Eric actually drew a few pages in issue 8 for them because, or I believe it was 7, somewhere in volume 2. Eric drew some pages and a few others chipped in and drew some pages because Corey just couldn't keep up.
so Well, I'm kind of glad Corey couldn't keep up because it brought
Me
on
too.
Ryan Otley.
Me
But
too.
like the
Sorry,
art
Corey,
is
but me
no,
too.
the art isn't bad. Like it's not bad. It's not my favorite style, but knowing even on our the trade dress, the one you have behind you for the hardcover, I believe that's Otley or
It
Mike. I don't
is.
know.
That's Ryan Ollie.
Yeah. So like that brought on Ryan Otley, and I know what to expect from Ryan Otley from this series. I think the scene, if Ryan Otley had drawn the first 8 and that brutality was there, I don't think it would be as brutal as the Corey Walker, because I don't know, the Corey Walker style to me isn't as brutal. I don't know. I just like it, the suddenness of that act on those 2 pages. I think it was more jarring with the Corey Walker style and not the Ryan Otley, because the Ryan
I
Otley
agree.
is very bombastic. It's very
Yeah, that's a good point.
comic book, oriented.
Yep.
So like when I read it again, I was like, whoa, I don't remember it also being that like quick, you
Yeah.
know.
Fun fact
But
about Corey is the co-creator of Invincible. This isn't
okay,
like a Robert Kirkman solo affair. Like Corey co-created a lot of this stuff and helped design a lot of the character looks.
okay,
And throughout the course of the series, Robert consulted with Corey on
okay,
many,
that's
many, many
cool.
things. And even at some point, even Ryan was consulting with Corey on character designs and thematic elements, and even some of the bigger story beats Corey had a hand in. He also did some issues later on in the series. He returns to Invincible to do some fill-in arcs for Ryan when he had to step away. So Corey, even though he's not drawn the monthly comic
He was
after
still part of
the
the team.
first 8, 9, whatever issues, like he's still heavily involved in Invincible throughout the course of the entire comic's life.
I did not know that, so that's cool. Yeah, the the if you read issue 7 and you're not into it, I don't know, man. Like if that doesn't get its hooks in
Yeah,
you,
and that's not even like the craziest twist that happens in
it's
the first
really
12
not. It's
issues.
really not. But I think that was the one that got me. And now, yeah, now that you're talking about the next trade we got to wait to read next month or
Yeah,
whatever. Oh my goodness. But there's always no, I do. I mean, I honestly do think there are some really high beats that kind of match or top some of those. Like later on during, I
there's
can
so
think of
many.
one. Yeah, I mean, I can
We
think of
could
one
do an episode
storyline,
of like our top 10
and we
invincible
probably will.
moments.
We probably will after this. We probably should. We probably
Yeah, we
should.
probably should. I don't know if I could
Uh,
pick 10, honestly. There's so much good stuff that happens.
yeah.
There's one thing that happened in the first 2 trades that I would be remiss if I didn't mention. Um, it's when William, Mark's best friend, finds out that he's invincible when they're touring at Upstate University, and there's like a quick 7 or 8 panel villain attack that isn't really a villain attack, and William kind of puts it together that Mark is invincible, and then he shows up at Mark's house later and like essentially begs Mark to take him flying, like please fly me around. You remember this? You know what I'm getting at?
I think I know where you're going.
Yeah. So Mark flies him up, and that issue ends with like them flying up into the atmosphere, and Mark says something to the effect of, "Man, this is so gay." And that I don't think that type of writing wouldn't fly today. Um,
No.
and it was 20 years ago. It was a different time, and we're talking 2002. We're barely out of the 90s, and it was just it was a different time. And you can get away with that kind of stuff. And part of me, when I was kind of reflecting on that when I read it over the weekend, I was thinking, maybe this was just a very ham-fisted attempt at foreshadowing, because William's character is gay.
Spoilers.
You just don't know it yet.
Yeah.
Mark hasn't been told. William hasn't come out yet in the comic. In the show, I think he comes out. It's not even that he comes out. Like in the first episode, like he just mentions that
Yeah.
like a guy is cute or whatever. Like he's gay from the start at the show. But I thought that was an interesting sort of time capsule effect, where even independent comics 20 years later are not immune to the sort of like social progression that we've gone through, and that even they sometimes misstep when they maybe didn't in the moment when it was written. Looking back at it now, you're like, "Ooh,"
Yeah,
a little awkward.
that was definitely a little. It was a little awkward, and that was, I mean, that was common lingo. I'm not
Yeah.
condoning it. I'm not saying it
Oh
was
yeah,
right, but
same,
that
same.
was
I just think that
you.
it's worth, I just think it's an
Yeah,
interesting thing to point out that to me, Invincible doesn't feel like it's 20 years old, Like
yeah,
to me,
that's
it's
a
like the thing just ended a couple of years ago. Like
yeah,
I'm still not
exactly.
over it. So it was sort of a weird it was a weird moment of reflection where I also had to acknowledge how old I am.
Yeah. When did it end? Twenty.
I don't remember. I try to block
I'm
out the
something like
ending of things that I love because I don't like to
you're
say
not that.
goodbye.
You're I know you're not 2018. I honestly thought it was earlier than I thought it was like 2014 or something. But yeah, 2018.
Probably should have been, but that book was late so often for so many
That's
years
true.
that
That's true.
if they had, it was what 144 issues.
Yep.
So it should have only lasted 12 years. So it should have wrapped in 2014. You would have been spot on, my friend. 12 issues a year for 12 years would take you to 2014. So that man was 4 years worth of late comics.
The Kirkman effect,
Uh,
man. Walking Dead, dude.
yeah, I
Walking
think some
Dead.
of it might have been Otley too. I don't know if it was all Kirkman, but
Yeah, that's true. But when you got an issue, it wasn't saga late, but when you got an issue, you were looking forward to it for sure. Like every issue I
yeah.
got, I was like,
But they
yes,
were all worth the wait.
absolutely.
My only complaint was that when you'd get it, it would be over so fast.
Yeah, I definitely
That
read
comic
this
reads
twice.
so fast. I love that. I love that about it. I love Robert's use of um sort of the static panel to tell a story. Like there's the start of one of the issues. Mark is tired and he's sleeping,
Yep,
and it
that's
starts
like two
with
pages.
it's like three panels of like Mark just laying on the pillow, like the same panel three
Same
times,
panel.
copy pasted, then saying something about sleeping in on Saturdays, and then three more panels of nothing. Same thing, Mark sleeping with no words, and then a fourth panel of, and some of us had to sleep longer than others or whatever he said.
Yeah,
You get a full, like you said, 2 pages of just like the same panel with two boxes of text, and I think that while to some that might feel like a cop out, I think that's genius to me. And the fact that he does that, they actually speak to that in one of the
that's
later
you
volumes in one
got
of the
it.
forewords.
Yep. Well, they speak to it in the actual comic too. I don't know if you remember, as like a guy. I think Mark is going to get comic signed, and he meets.
Oh
It's
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
a
You're right.
stand-in
That's
for
later on.
Bendis.
Yeah,
It's supposed to
yeah,
be like a stand-in for Brian Bendis, and he's like commenting how comic book writers are lazy and they just use these repeating panels. And now it's like there's just like stuff like that
yeah.
Kirkman is aware of the audience. That just sets it apart.
So anything else in the first two trades that we haven't touched on that was? I feel like we got most of it. There's we haven't gotten to any of the like the Mark and Eve kind of will they won't they stuff yet.
No, I think
Even Rexplode are still together, or did we get past that? I think we got past that. We're
you
past
get
that.
past it at the end of the issue 7
Yeah,
ish.
that's right.
Is
Yeah,
the end
that's
of that
so.
relationship.
I will say this: the way that Rex and Eve's relationship ends. Uh, there's a character on the teen team called Duplicate, and Duplicate can create copies of herself. And Eve, Rex's girlfriend, walks in on Rex with three duplicates. Walks in on them doing some adult things, and I thought that was a really interesting way. to,
Very interesting.
I'm, you know, that was another thing that happened, early on in Invincible that I was like, okay, so this is also like pretty adult themed in nature. There's, I don't know.
No, you're right.
Well, he just does cool, interesting stuff, man. Like it's stuff that people have probably joked about and talked about before. You've never actually seen in like a serious superhero comic.
I don't ever really want to think about it with my parents, but there's a scene in this comic, and I probably didn't really get it. I'm sure I got it, but didn't stick with me until now. Where Mark is out on patrol, I think with Eve, they're like whatever, hanging out, or he might just be by himself. And he comes home, and his parents have had the house to themselves, and they don't really have the house to themselves that much because Omni Man Nolan's always protecting the world, doing his thing. They have a night together, him and his parents, and Nolan hears Mark coming in, so they fly. He's like, "Oh crap, he's home," and they're doing things that parents might be doing, and they're sitting on the couch looking there awkwardly, and Mark is like, "Don't, I'm gonna throw up," or like, "I can't believe I saw this," or whatever. And you see that Nolan got himself and Debbie dressed, but Debbie's shirt is on backwards and her tag is hanging out of the front of her shirt. And Mark obviously sees that his parents were doing some parental stuff when he was away.
That
Like
also
that stuff
happens like panel for panel in the show too.
I don't. Yeah. So like that's just human stuff, man. Like
Yeah.
it's just Kirkman knows how to do it. He's just a great writer. So that's it, man.
So that's a wrap on the first 2 volumes of Invincible. Next month we'll hit volumes 3 and 4, and we'll talk about those too. And we'll go through like I said, 12 months.
Two volumes. Yeah.
Yep, 2 volumes a month. There's actually 25 trades.
I think
so
we'll
it's
have
gonna,
to do 3. Yeah, I was
yeah.
like,
There's one we have to do
we'll
3.
do 3.
It'll
like
probably be. I think
things.
it'll be that when we get to the Viltrumite War, because Viltrumite War is 2 trades plus another trade, so that probably is the one we should do 3.
Okay,
I think
that works.
I don't know. We'll see. There's a lot of stuff near the
That
end
makes
that it'll make sense to group into a 3. But anyway, more Invincible to come. We're gonna walk through 2023, going down memory lane with my favorite comic, and hopefully some of your favorite comics soon too. Maybe even yours, Matt. I don't know. Maybe we can unseat Superman or whatever
Superman's
Daredevil book or whatever Marvel or DC book is in the top spot right now. I'm going to try to beat that out of you and get Invincible where it belongs, number one. All right, you want to move on to the news?
Yeah, let's do the news.
All right, let's hit some news.
It's time for the news.
Matt, because Dave doesn't really pay attention to this.
Over the holiday period, I admittedly have been kind of I got out of the loop, man. Like I wasn't.
That's okay. That was the point. That's why we took a break.
And I wasn't really dialed in as much as
I don't think there was a ton of news anyway. I mean, most companies are shut down for the most part. Skeleton crews during the holidays. I mean, when I worked the week between Christmas and New Year's at my job, and like there are 10 people on my team, and only 4 or 5 of us were working that week, and that was pretty much the same for my entire company. Like half the people there were not working.
So over this period, I want to talk about it more once we get into like what are we reading, what are we playing. But I kind of played some more video games, than I normally do over this period, because that's normally what I do. Like I'm in higher ed, so we get like kind of like 3 weeks to a month off, depending on what institution I was working at. So I always
3 weeks to
try
a
to
month.
catch up on. Yeah, I always try to catch up on like a bigger video game that I don't have time to play. So I did that, but like the one thing I haven't really talked to you like really a lot about like video game stuff recently. So I was curious, like, and I know this is reported everywhere, but like, what do you know about like this Activision Blizzard Xbox merger thing? Have you heard of this? Are you aware of it at all?
Yeah, I'm aware of it. Of it. So it was initially going to be an acquisition.
Yeah.
Then kind of reclassed as a merger, with Xbox sort of being the one in control. And the most recent bit of news is that the SEC is potentially going to block this merger because of monopolization.
Yes.
And I would imagine this is at the behest of companies like Sony.
Yes.
Nintendo.
Exactly.
More so Sony, probably.
Yeah, probably more so. Yeah, definitely Sony. So I very much like, if you followed this show at all, like I definitely like the end result product, but there's some things that like really capture my imagination. It's like why I really like professional wrestling. Like I like the product in the ring, but honestly, I like the politics and things that go on behind, outside of the ring are more fascinating than what actually goes on in the ring. So like this story, like I could not get enough of it. Like I was just listening to a lot of stuff about it because I just find it really intriguing. And I was like, what are your thoughts? Like, what are your thoughts? Do you think anyone's like in the wrong? Do you think like Microsoft is kind of justified that they're doing trying to acquire Activision? And I mean, I think potentially, obviously, one of Sony's fears is like they can make Call of Duty an exclusive game, and that is a huge percentage of the video game market share. So I didn't know, like, is Microsoft the bad guy? Is Sony the bad guy? Is there no one in your opinion that's a bad guy? Have you thought about it? Do you care?
I have, and I do care. So I don't necessarily think Microsoft is in the wrong, nor do I think Sony is in the wrong,
Okay.
because the laws as they are written allow this type of thing to happen. And we also have a checks and balances system where the FTC or the SEC or whatever governing body needs to will investigate a potential merger or acquisition to make sure that the laws of competition aren't breached, and therefore the consumer is the one that is suffering. And I get it. I agree with that. I think competition is the best thing for the consumer, especially when it comes to
I
video
agree.
games, because
I agree.
I know you're not a sports game guy for the most part. Here and there, you
Oh,
dabble.
we can talk about Madden though. We we can
Yeah, but
talk
we can
about
talk about
Madden.
Madden because there only EA can make
NFL.
licensed with the players' names NFL games, and because of that, we get a substandard product that feels like it gets worse every single year. There is no competition. So as Microsoft and Sony continue to snatch up developers and publishers continue to snatch up smaller development teams, the ability to compete is lessened and continues to dilute until there is no more competition. And now it's like, oh well, you have to buy an Xbox to play Call of Duty. You have to buy Madden to play, with the Buffalo Bills and have Josh Allen on your team. There's nothing that's driving those products to be better because there's only one option. And your choice as the consumer is either play or not play, not which version do I want to play.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, on the outset, I kind of feel like Sony's been gobbling up a lot of like, I feel like Sony's approach is like, we'll work with a company, we'll work with a developer, and if the relationship is kind of mutually beneficial, we will acquire said developer, aka like Insomniac Games. There's clearly some kind of working relationship going on with Square Enix right now. They haven't been acquired by Sony, but there's some kind. There has to be some kind of agreement kind of going on.
Mm-hmm.
I am, as someone who loves Final Fantasy VII and has played that game multiple times and has primarily been an Xbox gamer, I have been completely screwed out of that franchise, and it does not feel good. It does not feel great.
Mm-hmm.
So, I feel like Microsoft, on the other hand, it's kind of that meme that's going around on the internet and F around and find out. Like, okay, well, you've acquired all these teams. Guess what? We're going to take Call of Duty. But even Microsoft, and there's been like this.
I
Well,
think
there have been.
Microsoft started doing this first, to be honest. Where I think this all happened,
Where do you think it started?
Sony's first party games presence is so strong and has been
Yes.
for a really long time. And as Microsoft focused more and more on hardware and less on software, they found themselves at a place where they had no in-house developers to make their franchise games. They have Turn 10 doing Forza games every year. They had 343 turning out substandard Halo games that no one likes, that were
I
broken,
like
that you
it.
can't play. And then with Gears of War, they've
they acquired them, right? Because they were
well,
originally.
it was Epic Games. It was an
Yep.
exclusive with Microsoft. Microsoft didn't own Epic Games. And then when Microsoft owns the Gears of War franchise, not the studio. So
Okay.
when they had nowhere to turn to make Gears of War games, they ended up getting a really bad game called Gears of War Judgment. And then eventually a developer called the Coalition was founded, and then now they handle Gears of War. The Coalition is headed by Rod. I forget Rod's last name. Rod Ferguson.
Ferguson.
He was the game director on Gears of War 2. So he's a guy that's been in the franchise for a while, so he kind of knows what he's doing. And Gears 4, Gears 5, they were good games.
Yeah.
But that was really all Microsoft had. And rather than invest years into building out strong development teams internally, they just went, oh, well, we'll just go buy some stuff. So they bought Team Ninja, they bought Bethesda, they want to buy Activision or merge with Activision, and they bought a lot of other smaller developers, and then just decided, okay, well, we bought these, so now we have strong first-party presence and titles as well. But those developers aren't really making new IP for Microsoft consoles. All you've done is made Elder Scrolls a future Elder Scrolls game is potentially a Microsoft and PC exclusive experience. But I mean, at the end of the day, money's going to talk, right?
Yeah.
If Sony wants to pay Microsoft enough money to release an Elder Scrolls game or Starfield or whatever it is, or the next Fallout, like, I'm sure it's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I just find it really interesting. So you are dialed in, you know what's going on. So
yeah.
News topic 2 might not be big news to anyone else, but news to me.
Okay.
Have you played any more of that Midnight Suns game? Because I've been hearing really good things about it. In our last episode, it did not sound like it was like something you were going to continue with.
I ripped that thing a new asshole. You can say what happened. So they did release a stability patch for PC.
Okay. Are you playing on PC? That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have not gone back to it yet, but we'll get into why once we get into the what are you reading, what are you playing section of the episode.
Okay.
My friend Andy is also playing it on PC. They've actually released 2 PC patches since launch. And it's funny you bring this up because I was just talking to Andy about it over the weekend, and he was saying that he still can't play it on PC. Like it's still so broken. Like he cannot do it. He's like, I won't go back to it until I fix it. He loves it. He actually loves the game. Like he genuinely liked it a lot more than me. I'm like, oh, there's good stuff there, but fatal flaws here and there that prevent me from really liking it. And he is like, nope, I love it. Now, I don't know if Andy listens to the podcast or watches it, but Andy, I don't mean this as a slight to you. However, it's not. He will freely. We've talked about this before. He will freely admit this, but he tends to be really forgiving of things. Andy likes to like things. He's a really fun-loving guy. He just loves video games, and
he is a good dude,
he will always find the best part about a game. And if there's enough there for him to like latch onto that he likes, he's going to say that he likes the game. He's going to tell people that it's fun to play. That's what I love about Andy, is he's always going to be the positive take to my very negative one. But he loves the game. He absolutely loves it. But he can't play it because it's not stable on PC. It's not a fun experience.
I was just listening to a podcast, and you're like, the end game experience is like real fun. But he's like, then, once you get out of the actual battle part, he's got, Tony Stark with that 1996 mustache on. And then when you were talking about getting sent to your room and like, doing your sheets in bed, like, I was just wondering if you played any more of it. So
I will go back to it, but not yet. Not yet.
News topic number 3, not the biggest piece of news. 4 days ago, a Gran Turismo movie trailer, like short trailer, is released. Yeah, dude. I'm kind of pumped. It kind of looks. I heard, because I was listening to a podcast and they talked about Gran Turismo, this movie. I'm like, what is this? So I just like Googled Gran Turismo movie, and it was like a trailer with like some of the actors talking about the movie. But they show the footage of like how they're shooting the movie, and they must be some like really sweet Sony cameras, but like the angles are like really cool. Like, I don't know. It looks intriguing. It looks like something I would go see in IMAX. I don't know what it's about. They're on tracks. I don't know what it's about. It has a bunch of young people in it looking like Cobra Kai, but I have any idea.
There's no shot this is a good movie.
I'm sure it's not good.
There's no possible way that they can write a plot around the Gran Turismo games and make this a watchable movie.
I hope it's incredible.
This is a cash grab.
I hope it's incredible.
Book it. Cash grab. Terrible. It's going to have like a 3.5 on Rotten Tomatoes.
I don't know, man. Looks great. Looks good. That's all the news I got.
All right. Well, then we'll move on to what are you playing and what are you reading? Do you mind if I start? So I haven't been reading a ton of stuff because I've had to read Invincible. That doesn't sound like I love reading Invincible. I'm glad I got to read that, but I haven't read a lot of other stuff. I haven't read a lot of other stuff. I did read a few issues of, or actually, I read the first issue of Chip Zdarsky's Batman run. So I'm in that now. Uh, but I've mostly been doing two things with my time. Three things, I guess. I'm playing Apex Legends a lot now. I'm really back hard on Apex. Like Max and I are on Apex like 3, sometimes 4 nights a week the last few weeks. Also, it's funny that we had the conversation that we did during the news section because I have also been playing a lot of Madden 23.
Yeah, you have.
It's not the best football experience ever, but it is the only one I have.
Is it better than 22?
I didn't play 22.
Okay,
I'm on like an every other year cadence with Madden. I just can't buy that game every year, and I only buy it when it goes on sale. I got it for $30. So the way that I most likely or most usually play Madden is taking the Jets and making them fun, because it's not fun in real life to be a Jets fan, and you don't get to experience a lot of wins. So sometimes you gotta go in and you gotta make it fun to be a Jets fan by taking control of the franchise yourself. So we made a few moves. We traded Zach Wilson to the Texans for a first round pick.
You're not getting a first round pick in real life.
No. But before the 2022 season
before
started,
roster updates, you better get that in before the roster update.
Traded him, and he sucked in Houston. I ended up with the 3rd overall pick. I simmed the first season so I could get to the draft and see where my draft pick landed me. So I had the 3rd pick overall with the Texans, and I got Bryce Young.
Okay.
So now we're running through a season with Bryce Young at quarterback, and it's been a whole lot more fun than watching the real New York Jets. And then I started watching a show on HBO called Silicon Valley.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, so it's I think it ended like a couple of years ago. All 6 seasons are on HBO to watch. So I actually finished it up on, what's today? Monday. Yesterday, I watched the last episode of the series last night. Really good show. It's like a 30-minute like a comedy. It's like it's on HBO, so there's a lot of adult themes, but a bunch of dudes in like the Silicon Valley in California, like trying to start their own company, and got a good cast. And that's just a good show if you're into like techie stuff and comedies, adult comedies.
That's cool. It's a I didn't know. I thought it was like a drama. I didn't know it was a comedy.
Not a drama at all.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
we're always
that's
looking
it.
for comedies.
That's how I've been spending my time.
All right, so before Christmas, I talked to you about it on a previous episode. I feel like that there was a professor at my job, or maybe I didn't talk about it on the show, but that I really connected with. I'm not going to go through.
I remember you mentioning this before.
Yeah, I think I might have mentioned on the show, but
you did.
We really connected with. Big time video gamer, and just like we've been talking about video games before break, before he left for, before we start the semester. And I made a promise to myself, and I said, if I can find a PlayStation 5 and I can use my Best Buy 18-month financing on it, I'm going to buy it. I'm not going to rush into it. I have the money on hand, but I'm not going to rush into it. I'm in no whatever. But if I find one, I'm going to buy it. So like December 15th, I found a PlayStation and I bought it. And boy, man, I love that system. I mean, already I love it. And I'm normally the what are you reading guy. I have been playing a lot of video games over this break. So I will still continue to read, but there's probably going to be a little bit more what are you playing as well too. So when I got the PlayStation, first game I played Assassin. Well, this is on Xbox actually. I played Assassin's Creed Odyssey because I went to the in-laws, had some time, and probably within like 2 weeks, I think I put like 40 hours into it and beat it. I beat it like 45 hours. Like
that's pretty good.
Much. I had a little monitor and I'd be watching like the football games or like when they were playing and I wasn't needed. I was just grinding missions. Really enjoyed that game. It was one of probably my favorite Assassin's Creed game I've ever played. It was a
I
lot
never
of
get into
fun.
those games. I'm there's not for me. I don't know why. I've tried playing several of them.
Yeah,
I don't. It's just it's not for me.
yeah, and that's
I get
fine.
the appeal. Like if they look cool, they look like fun games to play. For some reason, my brain just doesn't let me have fun playing them.
There was a huge shift too with Origins, which was the one before. They kind of changed the whole formula of Assassin's Creed. It definitely became more open world, more RPG kind of elements. If you kind of like that kind of thing, um, I I don't always advocate microtransactions or whatever, but for these games, how Ubisoft gets you, there's a boost you can buy for experience. It's like $10. I I always get it because like otherwise you're going to be grinding some of these missions like that just it makes no sense. And
I don't
like
like that. I don't like to hear
yeah,
that.
I don't like that, but for me, that's what I'm going to do. So you can still get there. It might take you longer, but whatever. But Assassin's Creed I really liked it. You can pick between a male or female protagonist. I picked the female. The acting was far superior than the guy. I didn't like the guy at all. So, but it was a cool game. Great looking, decent story for like an Assassin's Creed game. A lot of fun.
I'm still kind of stuck on you paying $10 for an XP boost.
Oh, dude, I'll do it all day. I don't.
I
I
hate
feel
that.
no shame. I feel no shame in it whatsoever. Not at all. I have no problem.
Hmm.
Games on Game Pass, dude. I
You're
didn't pay
actually
$60 for it.
that you're part of the problem.
Sure, I'm part of the problem. I don't buy them all
You're
though.
perpetuating this predatory business practice of pay to win. You pay to win. That's what that is. It's a pay to win tactic. It's like a mobile game thing.
It's my own experience in my own single player game. I don't really care.
How
You
much did
could,
you pay?
yeah,
How much did you pay for the game?
it's on Game Pass. I didn't buy it. I paid
All
my
right.
subscription. I'm gonna have anyway.
All right.
That's my thing, dude. I'm not buying like the only games I'm buying are like Gears of War, Halo, and like Final Fantasy. I have so many games on a backlog, and I might have fallen into a little bit of an arrangement where I don't need to buy any games really. So like I'm
What
just
do you
playing.
mean? What do you mean?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
What do you mean an
Um,
arrangement? This is a perfectly legal partnership. The console is
I actually
designed to function this way.
I actually heard on a podcast they were advocating you do this, and I was
Yeah,
like, oh,
you
I didn't
should
know
do
this.
it.
I didn't know that everyone was doing this. I didn't
Yeah,
know
you
this was
should
what the
do
cool
it.
kids are doing.
If you know, you know, and if you don't know, go Google console sharing PS5. You're welcome. Find a friend, a relative, whatever, someone you trust, and enjoy.
So
Life is meant to be enjoyed, and it's meant to be enjoyed as cheaply as possible.
let's just say that I said after I beat Assassin's Creed, I think I texted Dave and I was like, hey man, that was a phenomenal game, but I have no desire to play an Assassin's Creed game for a while because it
I
was
don't think
like
you texted that to
I didn't
me.
text that to you.
I
All right,
don't
I
think
might
so.
have texted.
That doesn't
All right,
sound
sorry.
familiar at
All right.
all.
So like, sorry, I might have texted Sharon or something. I don't know.
Dude's
I
just
texted
making shit
somebody.
up on the fly.
I texted somebody that, and I was like, "Yeah, it was a good game. I have no real desire to
Hold
play it
on.
again."
Are you sure you said Assassin's Creed?
I think I said Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
All right. So the only text I have from you about Assassin's Creed was
Live
on
receipts.
December 22nd. No, I'm
Okay,
sorry. Yeah, December
what I say?
22nd. I asked if you're watching the game, and you said,
Okay,
I will be while playing Assassin's Creed, more than likely.
okay. So I must
Then
have
you
sent that.
said, you can always rant and rave even if I'm not watching. And I said, yeah, but it's usually funnier with context.
Okay. So I texted someone I don't remember, probably Sheridan, about how I played this game. I put 45 hours in. I have no desire to play an Assassin's Creed game again forever. Then I got the PlayStation, and through this little arrangement, someone
Sorry,
else.
I'm reading our text. That
Oh
was
no!
the
Don't
Jags
read
Jets
that.
game.
Yeah, don't read that. Don't read
the,
that thread. That's a good thread.
the things coming out of my mouth
Yeah, there
after
was
that.
venom.
Yeah, I was
There
not
was a lot of
happy.
venom. There was a lot of venom.
My favorite text was the one where I said, "Nah, this season is chalked. Can't win with Zach. Cue the Mike Singletary clip.
I remember.
Can't win with him."
Can't do it.
Anyway,
I'd rather play with 10 men on the field and get penalized the whole way down.
Oh,
I told
man.
Vernon to go hit the shower. Dude, I know that. Oh.
I wish Mike was still coaching.
I know.
Those
He was
sound
good.
bites. Gold.
But through this arrangement, there's Assassin's Creed on the PlayStation 5. And boy, do I love that controller. And I'm tempted to go back and play through the whole thing again.
Don't do it.
I'm going to do it.
There's so much
Okay.
more to play.
I know. Game number 2. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. I really fell down the rabbit hole with this game. I haven't played a Call of Duty game in a lot of years. This one was pretty solid. I'm a fan of it. There's a lot of cooperative modes that are pretty intriguing. There's a third-person mode now, which I have been addicted to. So it's like Gears of War over the shoulder, and it's just it's a different wrinkle on multiplayer. And I definitely think you should check it out. If you like Call of Duty, I think you'll really enjoy it. There's a lot of bang for your buck there. With game prices now being, I didn't know they were that $70. I got it on sale, but I think you can get your bang for your buck if you have a couple buddies you want to squad up with. There's a lot of fun stuff you can do there. And
I'm not a huge Call of Duty guy. The only Call of Duty game that I've really loved in like modern times is Black Ops 4 because of the Battle Royale mode Blackout. That's my second favorite BR of all time. It's a shame that Activision was so quick to move away from that style of game and give us Warzone, which is like the filthy casual's dream for BR. I hate it. But I have a similar arrangement on Xbox. I've downloaded Modern Warfare 2 thanks to a good friend of mine. So maybe I will give Modern Warfare 2 a try.
And when you get in that filthy casual Warzone and want to pull someone in, please let me know because I would love to play with you.
I have tried playing Warzone many, many times, and I cannot do it.
Can you just play it and make sure it's like that's the mode, or DMZ? That's the mode I play, DMZ. Can you make sure that's the thing?
I haven't played DMZ.
Because that's the thing where there's like bots in it, but there's also humans as well too. It's fun, man. I had a lot of fun playing it, but
it's the time to kill in Call of Duty games is too slow or too low for me. Boom, and you're dead. Like I like prolonged gunfights, like you get in Apex or Blackout or PUBG. Like, give me more time to have the fight. Let me run some strategy. You blink and you're dead in Call of Duty games. I just can't do it. That's why I love Blackout 4 or Black Ops 4 / Blackout, because the time to kill is so much longer in those games. Got to get that long TTK for me to be happy.
In the last game I'm playing, which I'm currently playing on, well, obviously PS5, but I started up God of War 2018.
Me too. Phenomenal.
The opening cinematic where you're cutting down a tree with Kratos, dude, that got me. Like just the vibration on the controller, the PlayStation controller.
The vibration on that controller is crazy.
It's far significant. And everyone's been telling me that, but it is way better than the Xbox controller. Like the haptic feedback and just the polish of the game. Like this is a PS4 game that's upscaled or whatever. Like I love my Xbox. If this is any indication of what I have between the new God of War, Horizon, all these other games that I've heard about, I mean, I'm not a tribal guy. I've learned the lesson. I need to have both consoles moving forward, and that's what I'm going to do. But PlayStation is probably going to become my primary system. Just and when I was such an Xbox guy and on that side of the fence, I didn't get it. But like, these are gaming systems. You go to play games, and PlayStation has the games, so that's where I'm going to go. And hopefully, Microsoft kind of gets their house in order a little bit. Kind of referencing our previous conversation, but Sony put the time in with these different, development teams, and they're really reaping the benefit of it. So I'm looking forward to playing some games on my PlayStation. So.
Love to hear it. I'm looking forward to getting some cheap games on my PlayStation.
Oh, you're gonna get some.
So are you?
So, are we splitting on this Dead Space helmet or what?
Helmet, no, but the digital copy, maybe. Still waiting to hear back from Limited Run Games if I can cancel that pre-order. Dude, we are right at 60 minutes.
Cut it.
This is perfect timing. This was our goal when we started this new format of like topic, news, then what are you reading, what are you playing, was to be around an hour long for these episodes because we only release one episode a week. And if you like that one episode a week, I think it's really important that you share it with someone that you know. Like it, subscribe to it, leave a comment on YouTube. The only way people will find us is if you interact with us. So it helps other people that like comic books and video games find our content. So if you like us, do those things. We'd really appreciate it. Other than that, our Twitter handles are in the description of this audio episode or video. You can follow us on Twitter. We'll follow you back and we'll talk about nerdy, dorky, cool stuff like Invincible and video games and console sharing. We'll be back in 7 days with another fun and exciting topic. Until then, my name is Dave.
And I'm Matt.
Take care of yourselves, everybody.
Peace.